Welcome back to Los Angeles. I'm Adam Housley, and you're watching Tech Take. You know, it's a topic we've covered extensively here in the western region for Fox News. That is space tourism. Of course, Mojave, out in the middle of the high desert, is where a lot of the space tourism industry is taking place. We were there for the unveiling of Spaceship Two by Virgin Galactic back in 2009, and a number of other major events there as well. Of course, that's where the crash took place. The crash, as some people say, will adversely affect the space tourism industry. And we have a couple of guests here. John Spencer is the founder and president of Space Tourism. He joins me here live on set. We also have with us from our Massachusetts bureau, we have Chris Carberry. He's executive director of Explore Mars. He's with us as well to talk about this. Appreciate both of you guys joining us, both here on set and from Massachusetts.
Sure.
My first question, let's start with John here. John here in studio. John, you know, obviously we've just met. We're talking about the space tourism industry, and I think one of the things that I keep bringing up to my friends is horrible. It was a miserable crash. You hate to see anyone lose their life, but we got to put this into perspective. Also, NASA, which is is a government-run agency, they've had a lot of problems themselves over the years, and this is part of a very delicate and dangerous industry.
Oh, you're exactly right. Whenever you're exploring or going into new frontiers, it is dangerous. It's risky. The test pilots knew the risk. They're very professional. Virgin's very good. But NASA's lost actually 17 astronauts with 2 losses of shuttles and a fire in one of the capsules during Apollo. But space is risky. That's part of the draw, but it's also just the reality of the real world. Chris,
there have been some reports that some of the people that had dropped down as much as $250,000 to fly on the first flights from Virgin Galactic, which originally had been planned for 2010, have been postponed a couple of times. In fact, in September, Virgin had said that it was going to be in March probably of next year, those first flights. Will people still want to fly with Virgin after this? I mean, is this going to cause even more problems? Or again, there have been some grumblings. People were ready to go up and saying, hey, I put my money down and we hadn't had the opportunity yet. Or what will this do to Virgin's aspirations?
I think it's going to really depend on how Virgin moves forward. If they can show the customers confidence that they're going to get, figure out what the problem was and fix it, I think most of them will stick with Virgin. I've heard that only 3% of the paying customers have expressed an interest in getting a reimbursement of their funds. So I think they will stick with it as long as Virgin can show them that they still have a great product and they can figure out what went wrong and make sure it's a safe spacecraft, as safe as you can make it. As John mentioned, space is risky. Space is really tough. But sometimes we have to take those risks. Any new industry, any great new industry will take risks. Early aviation, was just, there were lots of fatalities during aviation. Yet people don't go back and say, why did we do this? Because it transformed the world. And that's really what Virgin is hoping to do as well, help transform the world, starting with space tourism.
Well, John, I know one of the issues Virgin was having is they weren't getting the performance out of their engine or out of their fuel. Mm-hmm. And to get that stamp of approval from the FAA, they had to meet certain guidelines. They basically had to at least do one test flight that was going to be exactly the way the paying customer would take place. This was the first flight with that new fuel and in that engine configured that way. I mean, what does this do for Virgin?
Well, they'll probably do 100 flights before they actually fly passengers in their configuration, just to get the procedures done and safety done and test out everything. But my understanding is in the wreckage, the engine and the fuel tank was found intact. So it doesn't seem as though the engine was the problem in this. It might very well have been pilot error, and that's the speculation right now. They do have to do a full examination, bring all the parts together, rebuild the aircraft, and test things out. But the engine may have been working just fine. It may have been other circumstances that caused the loss of the vehicle.
John, before I go to Chris, quickly, what does this do? How far back does this push Virgin? They talked about March, but that's not going to happen now.
No, I think they may be off for another year, maybe even 2 years. But the point is, what's the rush? It's more important to do this right and do it safely. We're building an industry with a long-term view of eventually thousands, even hundreds of thousands of people going into Earth orbit and eventually visiting the moon and building a vibrant, exciting space tourism industry.
Chris, what's this do for the space tourism? John touched on it. What's this do for the space tourism industry? Some of the other companies that are trying to get into the space tourism industry besides Virgin Galactic?
Well, I think it makes everybody a little more cautious. It's going to make everybody, look at the safety of their equipment much more closely. I think it will slow everybody down a little bit as everybody's investigating this. But in the end, I think it'll probably help the business. I don't think it's going to stop commercial or space tourism. That's going to continue, and as John mentioned, it's probably going to take about a year for Virgin to move forward. I heard in a news report lately that George Whitesides, who's the CEO of Virgin Galactic, mentioned that they'll have the new spacecraft ready next year. But I don't think it's going to slow down space tourism and commercial space too much.
Right. All right. Well, Chris Carberry, we appreciate your time. He's the executive director of Explore Mars. You can find out more about Chris and what he does at exploremars.org. Joining us from Newton, Massachusetts. Appreciate you joining us. And here on set, John Spencer, founder and president of Space Tourism. You can find him at spacetourismsociety.org. Both appreciate you guys coming on. We'll have to have you back because this is going to be an ongoing topic, as we both know, or all three of us, I should say, know. And we look forward to getting your guys' insights as we move forward.
Great.
All right,
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. I'm Adam Housley in Los Angeles, and you're watching Tech Take.